Welcome back, everyone, to the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage. You are looking at my restored, conserved, my woken up machine. This is, of course, I like to wake up my machines because this one had been sleeping for at least 20 years. This, of course, is the Pfaff Model 6. I've already done demonstration videos of this, I believe, showing it could sew light garment leather. Of course, it could sew fabrics, sew up a storm. Now, we are going to delve into the threading of the machine. Early in the establishment of my YouTube channel, I often would showcase sewing machines, and I would talk about their history, which I still do, and I would talk about how to overhaul parts of the machine and then demonstrate it when it was ready. But I didn't always remember to show the threading of the machines. Now, part of this was because I've been restoring machines for so long that many times when I get a machine, if I've never actually had one, I've had Pfaffs before, but I've never had this model, and I just kind of, I look at the thread guides and I kind of use my instincts to make sure that I thread the machine properly, and I know if I don't, the machine will tell me it doesn't like that. Now, occasionally I do still need to look at a owner's manual, especially if it's a very convoluted style of threading patterns, but this is a relatively simple machine. Now, if you have the owner's manual to the Pfaff Model 6, you should definitely read that. Always read your manuals, and the manual will give you a lot of great information, including threading the machine. However, some of the manuals from back in the day, including the one for this machine, again, please do read the manual, but the visuals and the drawings of how you thread it are sort of kind of there. But I was hoping that maybe today I could maybe be of help to you, whether you own a Pfaff Model 6 or some other Pfaff, or who knows what machine you've got. But anyway, I wanted to give you a demonstration of how to thread the machine. And but before, now you might think, what's the first thing you need to do when you're going to thread your machine? Now, some of you might say, well, you need thread and there's none on the machine there, Mr. Garage Guy. Well, yes, we do need the thread, but we're not starting with that yet. No. Put your thread down. Or if you have thread on the machine, but you need to thread it, let go of your thread and hold your horses, okay? First thing you need to do with any machine, this is not unique to the Pfaff 6, is your presser foot. Okay, your presser foot behind the machine is a lever. You should have a lever, and you're going to press up, and notice when I do, the foot comes up. When your foot, or whatever you have on here, you may have some other attachment on your machine, but on the presser bar, okay, your needle bar is going to, you can see the needle right here. If I'll zoom in there for you a little bit, you'll see the needle here, okay, but behind it, the needle and the needle bar are here, but you just see the needle because the needle bar is up. But the presser bar right behind the needle bar, that's what I'm talking about. Make sure that this is in the up position before you even think about threading your machine. Why do I say that? Because when your presser foot is down, the machine has a pin that pushes and squeezes those little miniature tension assembly discs that are sitting right behind this dial, and that is what squeezes on the thread, and basically it's where you adjust the upper thread tension. It's a pretty big deal, and if you sew, you know that your tension needs to be right for you to get a good stitch, right? Now, if you thread this machine with the foot down, okay, and some of you may have done it before, it happens to all of us, including me, that if you do that, your tension up here on your top thread can be not where it needs to be because you're trying to thread the machine after the discs are already squeezed, and that can throw things off. Now, I know some of you may have done that before and said, well, it didn't cause a problem. You got lucky, okay? So this is a really good practice to have. Just don't even touch the thread yet. Start over here. Make sure that your presser bar is up. And even if I'm assuming you'll have some sort of foot. This is a straight stitch machine. I have my straight stitch foot. But whatever you got on the presser bar, make sure it's lifted. Okay? Now you're ready to take a look at your thread. I had an old spool of thread on this before and it was almost empty, so I am going to use another spool. Now this one is this one doesn't have a ton of thread left, but it's enough for doing what we want to do today. I wanted a bright color to make this a little easier for you all to see. Trying to show you this with beige colored thread would just be silly. Okay, so I like to start, and I'll show you. I take my spool and I like to have the thread coming off the back or counterclockwise. That's just me, and I'm going to put it here. Make sure also that you have a felt washer, and this is really important because many of these machines came with felt washers when they were new, but whether you have the originals or you don't, make sure you have, if not the original, if it's gone, and they often are, they crumbled away, get some new ones on there. And the reason for that is that it keeps your spool of thread stable and helps to, not always perfectly, but it helps to prevent your spool from spinning and flying off your machine. Yes, it can happen. This spool is made of plastic. Some of the spools were even lighter. They were made of styrofoam. I don't know if they do that anymore. Hopefully not. But the old spools back in the day when this machine was made, of course, the spools were made of wood. And the wood was heavier. And even then, it was really useful to have your felt washer. But again, that is not a small thing. It's not there for decorative purposes. It's there to help keep your thread where it needs to stay. Okay? So I'm going to come off the back here, and I am going to find this. Now this, when I say this, I'm referring to this thread guide. And if you look, you'll see it has two, not one, but two openings right here and right here. This is sort of a large two-hole version of a thread guide you often will see, say, on Neki Supernovas and some other machines. I've even seen Japanese machines that have this. So what am I going to do? It's very hard to tell from the manual because the manual's drawing leaves a lot to be desired. So I'm going to come over here. Oh, sorry. Getting in my way here. I'm going to go to the right of the thread guide. That's where you want to start, okay? And I'm going to come through that the upper hole right there, and I'm going to pull my thread. I don't really need that long a piece here. And then I'm going to come back and go from the left towards the right in the lower hole. And I'll sort of loosen that thread so you can see, sort of put it like that so you can see the direction. Okay, so, by the way, watch your spool of thread, because when you're threading your machine, of course, that thread can get under the spool and cause you unnecessary problems. Thread is very tightly twisted and it likes to move around. So I think I've got mine in a better spot there. All right. So again, this is if this is helpful, you can see how I have threaded this. Okay. So again, you're coming from the right towards the left in the top hole. You turn around and then you make a curve and you go in the opposite direction through the lower hole of the thread guide. All righty. So now, where are we headed next? As is true with many vintage sewing machines, you're going to make what I like to call the letter J, right? You're going to come straight down, and we're going to be curving around underneath like the letter J. Now, some machines have what could be described, or what I've described as sort of you might call it a flange or a tongue or something, but it's often a piece of steel. I think you see this more in the 60s, although you may see it on older machines from the era of this Pfaff, but the Pfaff didn't have it. And it's a piece of steel that you put your thread against, and you just sort of, it glides your thread to where it needs to be. Well, we don't have that here. So you're going to need to look extra close to make sure that when you pull your thread down, that you're actually getting the thread in where it needs to go and not somewhere else. Because if you don't, you're going to go nowhere fast. Okay, so I've moved the perspective of the camera. I'm going to zoom in here for you. And now I'm going to shine a flashlight. Let's get a light in here so that we can see more closely what we're doing. So again, don't just come straight down and start tugging, because right now where the thread is, that's not between the discs, that's behind the rear disc, which means you're not going to have what you need. Okay, I'm going to come right here. Now, where is right here? We'll zoom in a little bit more. Get my little pointer here for you guys, and I want you to see this. Right here means I am, if you notice where I've got my little piece of steel here, notice that it's on, there's one of the discs, the rear disc, is behind my little pointer here. Okay, the other disc you can't see because it's actually covered by this piece here. So what am I doing? I want to make sure that my thread is on the front of the rear disc. Okay, so let's take a look. We'll zoom in even more and see if that makes sense to you guys. Okay, so notice that you see what I'm doing. Make sure that there is at least one disc behind that thread, because if there isn't, you're not going to have your machine threaded and you're going to have to start all over, and you may not be happy. The machine will just not sew a stitch properly for you, and it'll just wait. It'll sit there. Machines are quite patient to wait on you when they're waiting for the user to fix what they need to do. All right, so now we're going to come back around, and I'm going to turn things so that you get a whole other view. Let's see if I can. All right, so I'm going to give us a little more height here and sort of peer down over the tension assembly, this whole unit. Now what I'd like you to focus on is the path, that your thread is going to take. I lost my pointer. Okay, I've got another one. All right, so I want you to see, as the thread, when it comes underneath, it's going to follow the edge of this piece. Okay, and this piece is curved. In other words, it's narrow and it widens as it comes up. Let's get a little more light here. See if that shows you better. Okay, so the thread is going to come around here. It's going to rub right against this edge as I'm coming up, right? And then it's going to come all the way around, and it's going to go right there. It's going to land in this little crevasse or valley, whatever you want to call it, and that's where it's going to live. Okay, so let me get my other hand free here. Now watch the bright thread. Watch what it does. Get my fat thumb out of the way. Okay, so I've come underneath, right? I'm underneath. I'm making that letter J coming around, right? Whoops. Now, if you catch the edge of that check spring, this check spring, by the way, is supposed to look like this. It looks like it was mangled, but I've actually seen photos of the machine when they were new, and that's it. Okay, so I'm going to take this thread. Watch as I pull it. Okay, I'm on the front of the check spring. Don't get behind the check spring. Go on the front like that. Okay. Now watch the thread. Notice the thread keeps traveling as I pull up. It's going to travel all the way up, and what you may need to do, because you've got to keep pulling, boop, and there it goes. Now what I could have done was put my hand on the spool, not squash it, but just kind of hold on to it. Otherwise the thread will keep going, right? You'll just keep pulling the thread off. Now you might think, well, okay, well, how do I know that I'm where I need to be on the tension assembly? Because when I pull up on the thread on that letter J, you see the check spring bouncing? That's what you want. Okay, now what comes next? Well, we now want to take a look at the front of the machine again. Okay. Often threading a sewing machine is about, you're going up and down and up and down and all around. So that's why you see quite a lot of camera angle changes here. All right. So one of the things, in addition to having your presser foot up, as I was mentioning earlier, you want to have your take-up arm up. Okay. So your take-up arm should be in the highest position right there. Okay. That's why you didn't see much of the needle bar. You just saw the needle because the needle bar is all the way up when the take-up arm. Your take-up arm, by the way, is this piece. Now, we're going to come up, okay, and we've got our J formed here. Our check spring's bouncy and happy. Now I'm going to come to the right of my take-up arm. There's a hole at the top, and I'm going to come toward the left. Now, notice what just happened. If you were, I felt it, and I don't know if you saw this, but of course, what happened? When I came around, right, with my happy my happy thread, right, it got some slack in it, and it wiggled around over here, okay? This can happen to you. Don't panic, you haven't broken anything, but if you're not watching this and you think you're just going to town and you're getting your machine threaded, you're not going very far when you try to stitch, okay? So just laugh at it. I mean, don't let it bother you. It's just the nature of thread, okay? So now I'm back where I was. I've got my J, here's my check spring. I'm back where I need to be, and make sure that your thread is back living in its little happy little valley there, right on the top of the assembly like that, right? So there's the thread's sitting there where it needs to be, but now it's back under the check spring, okay? So what you may want to do is kind of hold some of this slack in your hand, and it's just the nature of it, okay? Just watch it, because it'll have a mind of its own. Okay, so I'm going to try again from the right to the left, and I'm holding the slack in the thread so I don't have the same problem again. This happens to me all the time because I'm threading machines and I'm trying to test them, and it's just part of the nature of threading a machine, I'm afraid. All right, so we now have our take-up arm threaded, and the rest of this machine is not really that complicated. You have a thread guide here, and how do you know how to put it in? You can read the manual. Now, if you're just going to try to do it without reading the manual, you could come this way. Remember, I've mentioned to all of you in quite a few videos before that if you come up on a thread guide, which you're supposed to when you're threading a machine, and you don't know how it goes, try it from one side, right? I know which side this. Well, it doesn't thread that side because you keep pulling, it doesn't. So try this one and pull on it. Oops, and I broke my thread. Let's try that again. Okay. Boom. And I don't know if you heard that. It made a little clicking sound. That was the thread sliding around this guide. It is supposed to come in from the left side. Okay. So you just saw me. I took the thread and from the left, I pulled it. But if you don't know or you don't have a manual, try both sides. Okay. You should be able to slide the thread in. You shouldn't have to take the thread and try to thread the top of the thread guide like the needle. You can, but that's not really a very efficient way to do it. All right, let's lower down here and let's see, get a little lower view now that we're making progress here. Get even further so you guys can get a nice view. Got some late afternoon light here, so this hopefully should help us. Now, we have another thread guide. There's one right here. How do we know which side it's going to thread on? Well, just try it, right? There's only so many ways that your thread's going to go in your thread guide, so I'm going to come around here. Let's try it on the right side, shall we? Well, look at that. It went right in there, okay? Now, if you try it from the left, and I will remove it just so we can see. Because some of you will, you may have already tried this before and you say, well, I tried it from the left and it won't work. Okay, so let's do that. Let's come over it. Well, did it work there too? That's unusual that a thread guide will work from either direction, but hey, there it is. It was easier from the left though. Okay, I got it in the right, but I think it was much easier to simply come in from the left, just slide the thread, and it should slide right over the thread guide if your thread guide is there. Now you have one more before we hit the needle. Okay, now you might think, oh, well, the needle's here, but I must be ready to thread my needle. No, there's one right there. And because if you're facing the machine like you would normally be when you're sewing, you think, well, hey, I don't see a thread guide. Well, you have to kind of peer over it because it's in an odd it's behind, right? It's one of those interesting little places. You see this right here? I'll zoom in a little bit more for you. Right there, okay? You have to come back behind and hook around there. So I'll do that. Just pull the thread. Sometimes you have to put a little light tension, okay? You don't have to stretch the thread, but put some tension on it. And I will. It's a little ornery. This is not hard to thread when you're threading it. Now another thing, but I'm trying to not get in your way of seeing it. I'm going to come up, I'm taking my right hand up, which you can't see, and I'm going to I'm holding the spool of thread to give me a little more tension here. And you really have to go back. It's not just to the side. You got to go way over here. There, well, come here. There you go. And there it is. Okay? So if you're doing it and it doesn't want to thread, just be patient because it's kind of an oddball angle. It's almost like it's at like 1 o'clock or 1:15 going that way, right? It's not just behind. You have to take your thread and kind of put it under tension at this angle right here, which is kind of awkward. It's not hard to do, but if you're doing it for the first time, you might be saying, "What is going on here?" But no, there's nothing wrong. The machine is designed to work just like this. And what you may find when it comes time to thread that needle, look at the end of my thread here. You see how it's frayed? That just happens. It just, thread is just a tiny twisted yarn, and it gets a little frayed. So I'm going to cut it with my scissors, and the purpose of that is to give me a nice, a sharper end of the thread when I'm going to put it in the needle, so I'm not having to fight with it.